In this last portion of the course, we're going to look at the legal aspects of alcohol and driving, and finish up with a segment on the synergistic effects of alcohol when combined with other substances. I'm Rob Robison. Earlier in the course, we provided statistics about driving while intoxicated, or DWI, here in Texas. Let's review them for a moment. In 2016, more than 1 of every 3 fatalities and crashes on Texas highways happened as a result of someone being intoxicated. In that same year, Texas accounted for more than 10% of alcohol-impaired traffic fatalities nationwide. During that same year, more than 64,700 arrests were made here in Texas for driving under the influence. Now let's look at Texas's law for driving while intoxicated. Texas law says that a person is driving while intoxicated if they are operating a motor vehicle in a public place while they are under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. That's it, plain and simple. But like a lot of laws, there's only one where drunk driving law starts. Here in Texas, DWI is considered a Class B misdemeanor. Let's quickly break down the parts of what is called the basic offense of DWI. We've already discussed that intoxicated means either 1. Not having the normal use of your mental and physical faculties due to consumption of drugs or alcohol, or 2. Having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08% or more. There are a few other blood alcohol limits you should know about, though. The first is that if you're a driver under 21, there is no legal limit for alcohol. It is 0 tolerance. Second, if you're a commercial driver, you're subject to a 0.04% BAC as the legal limit. Now we'll look at 3 more points within the DWI law that you should understand. The first is that the law says while operating a motor vehicle instead of while driving. Why would they word it like that? The reason for this is that the word operating has a broader definition than that of driving. Operating could mean that you're in control of a vehicle, even if you're not actually driving. For instance, if you're parked on a street, just listening to the radio, it can be said that you are actually operating the vehicle. The second element of DWI law that you have to understand is what is considered a public place. For the purpose of DWI, the state of Texas defines a public place as any place to which the public has access. It includes, but is not limited to, streets, highways, and the common areas of schools, hospitals, apartment houses, office buildings, and transport facilities. The point here is that for the most part, you can be arrested for DWI in any of these areas, as long as the public can use them. Finally, there's the phrase motor vehicle. Over the years, through extensive case law, the definition of motor vehicle has come to mean almost any machine that has a motor and wheels or tracks and can move along a roadway. And if you're operating it drunk, you can go to jail. As you can see, the state of Texas is intent on making a difference when it comes to protecting our citizens from drunk drivers. What I'm going to talk with you about now is what it can cost for a DWI arrest and conviction these days. There are several types of DWI laws. We'll start with the basic DWI offense and conviction, and then move on to the more complicated and expensive crimes. Upon conviction of your first offense for DWI, you could face fines and jail time, and administrative sanctions on your driver's license. You could be looking at fines of up to $3,000, anywhere from 3 to 180 days in jail, suspension of your driver's license for up to a year, and an annual fee of $1,000 or $2,000 for 3 years to retain your driver's license. For your second offense, within 36 months, you'll be facing fines of up to $4,500, 1 month to 1 year in jail, license suspension for up to 2 years, and an annual fee of $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000 for 3 years to retain your driver's license. On a third conviction, you'll receive the following: a $10,000 fine, 2 to 10 years in prison, loss of driver's license up to 2 years, and again, an annual fee of $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000 for 3 years to retain your driver's license. Texas also has a special category for people who are drunk driving with children in their vehicles. DWI with a child passenger is where a person is DWI and another person under the age of 15 is in the vehicle. This is a felony that can be punished by confinement in state jail for not more than 2 years or less than 180 days, and a fine not to exceed $10,000. In addition to these penalties, after a second conviction for DWI, you'll also be required to install an ignition interlock device in your vehicle that will prevent you from driving if you've been drinking. Also remember that an open alcohol container increases the minimum jail penalty to 6 days in jail. There's even more that can happen if you're drinking and driving and someone is injured or killed. When there is a crash that has occurred with serious bodily injury and it resulted as a proximate cause of your driving drunk, you can be charged with intoxication assault. If you're convicted, the penalties are much more severe. You can be sentenced to a minimum of 2 years and up to a maximum of 10 years in prison. Even if you get a sentence of probation, you'll serve a 30-day minimum jail sentence. In addition to these penalties, you can be fined up to $10,000 if the vehicle was driven in a way that made it a deadly weapon. This is considered a third-degree felony. Not only that, there is an additional penalty that prohibits good time credit in prison to be considered for early release until at least half of the sentence has been satisfied. If someone dies, things are much worse. Intoxication manslaughter is a DWI where a death occurred in a crash and where the intoxication was the immediate cause of the death. Upon conviction of this second-degree felony, you may be sentenced to pay a maximum fine of $10,000 and can be imprisoned from 2 to 20 years. As with probation in intoxication assault, even if probation for intoxication manslaughter is granted, you must still serve a required 120-day jail sentence. If the vehicle was driven in a way that made it a deadly weapon, then there is an additional penalty that prohibits good time credit in prison to be considered for early release until a minimum half of the sentence has been satisfied. From the fines, penalties, and sentences I just described, it's really easy to see that Texas is serious about the crime of drinking and driving. But these aren't the only kinds of punishments a drinking driver receives. There are always hidden costs. Costs like losing your job, losing personal relationships, paying monthly probation fees, paying for court-ordered classes and counseling, possibly having to pay for injury and damages to others or their property, paying out of your own pocket for a court-ordered ignition interlock device, losing time in jail, and losing time in court-ordered community service programs. Trust me, the list goes on. Something else you want to take away from this segment is that here in Texas, DWI punishments, fines, sentences can vary from county to county. But it's a guarantee that if you're convicted of DWI, it will change your life, and just as likely change the lives of those around you. Now let's take a look at the synergistic effect of alcohol. The synergistic effect of alcohol refers to how other substances interact with alcohol to intensify its effect. Because alcohol is a drug, it should be treated no differently than taking any two strong drugs at the same time. Combining medications, whether prescribed or not, with alcohol can have unpredictable and unwanted consequences, and sometimes it can be deadly. Even over-the-counter medications can have serious side effects when taken with alcohol. A good example of this is the pain reliever and fever reducer acetaminophen. When taken with alcohol, it increases the chances of damaging your liver. Many nighttime cold remedies can intensify the effect of alcohol to the point where they can render a person unconscious. Beyond over-the-counter meds, the dangers of mixing alcohol and prescription or illegal drugs increases astronomically. In some cases, alcohol can actually create a situation called dose dumping, where an extended release medication is immediately broken down by the alcohol and releases its entire dose at once. This has been known to cause death in certain cases. Even simple antibiotics can interact with alcohol in some cases to produce violent physical reactions. This can include symptoms like dizziness, anxiety, chest pain, and heart problems. There are certain situations where the reactions can be even worse and can include dangerous elevations of blood pressure, possible seizures, and permanent organ damage. Remember that your liver is responsible for metabolizing drugs and alcohol. This means that it is even more open to damage if you're consuming both at the same time. If you take prescription or over-the-counter medications, ask your healthcare provider for advice about alcohol intake. Recognize that even herbal medicines and supplements can have adverse interactions with alcohol. We've come to the end of our course. We spent a little over 6 hours sharing subjects with you that the state of Texas and we think are important for drivers to have a clear grasp of today. Texas is like no other state in America. It has a history and an atmosphere that rivals any state in America. We hope that we have helped make you a better driver and more aware of the responsibilities we have to ourselves and others in our state who use our roads. Thank you for choosing At Your Pace Online, and remember to buckle up and be safe out there. I'm Rob Robison.